What if your body was trying to warn you that your time was running out, but you didn't recognize the signs? Think about it. We spend our whole lives learning to listen to our bodies. When we're hungry, we eat. When we're tired, we rest. When something hurts, we pay attention. But what if the most critical warning signs, the ones that signal our time may be running short, are the ones we're most likely to dismiss? What if feeling just a little more tired than usual wasn't just from a bad night's sleep? What if forgetting a name or a detail wasn't just normal aging? What if losing interest in your favorite meal, your favorite show, or even conversations with loved ones was more than just a passing mood? The truth is, the human body has an incredible way of preparing itself for the end, sometimes months, even a year before it happens. And while no one can predict the exact moment their journey will come to a close, doctors and researchers have discovered patterns. Certain changes, subtle, easy to overlook, often appear in the final year of life. The problem is, most people don't recognize them for what they are. They brush them off as part of getting older, stress, or just a bad week, and that's where the real danger lies. Because ignoring these signs can mean missing a crucial opportunity to intervene, to seek help, to cherish the time that remains in a way that truly matters. So if you or someone you love is over 70, these 5 signs are not just worth knowing, they could be the difference between catching something early and letting time slip away unnoticed. And the first one? It's so deceptively simple that most people never see it coming. Number 5, an unexplainable change in your daily rhythm. Take a moment and think about your routine. The way you wake up, the little things you do each morning, the habits that have shaped your life for years. Now, imagine they start to change, but not because you decided to change them. This is what happened to Leonard. For 40 years, Leonard started his mornings the same way: a fresh cup of coffee, a slow walk to the mailbox, and a little time on his front porch. Rain or shine, that was his rhythm. But then something changed. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't dramatic, it was just different. At first, he stopped checking the mail every morning. "I'll get to it later," he'd say, but later never came. The envelopes piled up, unopened. Then breakfast lost its appeal. His wife would ask, "Pancakes today?" And he'd shrug, not really hungry. One morning she noticed something even stranger. His coffee, his favorite part of the morning, the thing he never went a day without, sat untouched on the table. The steam had long faded, the surface dark and still. Leonard didn't complain. He didn't mention feeling unwell, but something was different. At first, his wife thought it was just a passing mood. Maybe he was feeling off, maybe he was bored. But days turned into weeks. He slept longer, moved slower, lost interest in the small routines that had once defined him. When she finally convinced him to visit the doctor, they found something they weren't expecting. His body was beginning to slow down in ways even he hadn't noticed. His heart wasn't as strong as before, his metabolism had shifted, his energy levels were depleting in ways too gradual to detect, yet too significant to ignore. This is one of the most overlooked signs that the body is entering a new phase, a phase that often precedes a deeper decline. Doctors say that when a person who has always had a steady routine suddenly starts drifting, when the habits that once gave them comfort and stability begin to slip away, it's not just a sign of aging, it's a signal, a quiet, almost imperceptible warning that something beneath the surface is changing. Of course, everyone has lazy days, everyone skips breakfast now and then, but when a pattern starts unraveling, when the things that once mattered no longer do, it's time to take a closer look. Because the next sign? It's even easier to dismiss. And far more deceptive. Number 4, a shift in temperature tolerance. Have you ever walked into a room and felt an unusual chill, even when no one else seemed to notice? Or maybe, on a mild day, you suddenly found yourself sweating, while those around you remained perfectly comfortable? For most of our lives, our bodies naturally adjust to the world around us. When it's cold, we shiver. When it's warm, we sweat. It's a built-in system designed to keep us comfortable without us even thinking about it. But as the body ages, that balance can start to falter in ways that are easy to overlook. At first, it might seem like nothing, a slight intolerance to the cold, the need for an extra blanket at night, or a sudden sensitivity to warm rooms. But when these changes become consistent, they could be signaling something deeper. That's exactly what happened to Harriet. Harriet always loved spring. At 73, she still spent her afternoons in the garden, hands in the soil, feeling the sun on her skin. She wasn't the type to get cold easily. But something was different this year. It started with a simple complaint. Is it colder in here, or is it just me? Her son laughed it off. "Mom, it's 75 degrees in here," he said, shaking his head. But she insisted. Her hands were always cold, her feet never warmed up, and no matter how many sweaters she layered on, she felt like she was standing in a draft. Then, the opposite happened. On a breezy April afternoon, she came inside, flushed and sweaty. "It's burning up out there," she muttered, wiping her forehead. But the temperature was mild, just like always. At first she thought maybe she was just tired, maybe coming down with something. But as the weeks went on, the pattern became undeniable. The cold felt colder, the warmth felt unbearable, and her body never seemed to get it quite right. What Harriet was experiencing wasn't just a random sensitivity, it was her body struggling to regulate its own temperature. Medical experts explain that as people approach their final year, their internal thermostat starts to break down. Circulation slows, metabolism shifts, and the body's ability to maintain a stable temperature begins to weaken. It might seem like an inconvenience, needing to bundle up more than usual or feeling uncomfortable in a slightly warm room, but it's more than that. A misregulated body temperature can be an early sign of declining circulation, reduced cardiovascular efficiency, or even metabolic imbalances. And if ignored, it can lead to serious health risks, including increased vulnerability to infections, heat stroke, and hypothermia. At first glance, it seems like a small thing, but when combined with other subtle signs, it can paint a much bigger picture of what's happening inside the body. And that brings us to number 3. This one is so common that most people assume it's just a normal part of aging, but in reality, it's often the first sign that the body is starting to let go. Number 3, a loss of interest in food and life. Food is more than just nourishment. It's memory, it's comfort, it's connection. The taste of a home-cooked meal, the smell of fresh bread from the oven, the sound of laughter around the dinner table. These are the simple joys that give life texture. But what happens when those joys start to fade? Most people don't think twice when an older loved one says, "I'm just not that hungry anymore." Maybe they assume it's just a change in taste or digestion, or that they're simply eating less because they're not as active. But what many don't realize is that a declining interest in food is often a much bigger sign, one that extends far beyond the dinner plate. That was the case with Marvin. Marvin had always been a man of appetite. A plate of barbecue, a slice of homemade pie, a cold drink on a hot day. These were the things that made him smile. Until they didn't. At first it was small. His daughter noticed that he wasn't eating as much, leaving more food on his plate than usual. When she asked about it, he'd wave her off with a laugh. Just not that hungry. Then it became more noticeable. His favorite foods, dishes he once devoured, sat untouched. Even the smell of fresh biscuits, something that used to pull him into the kitchen before they were even done baking, barely got a reaction. At first he blamed the food, said things didn't taste the same, said maybe his senses were changing. But over time, the excuses stopped. He just sat there, pushing his food around, uninterested. And it wasn't just food. He stopped watching his favorite shows, ones he never missed before. He stopped listening to music, stopped asking about the grandkids. It was as if the world around him was losing color, and he was slipping further and further into a quiet place no one could reach. Doctors see this pattern all the time, the gradual fading of appetite, not just for food, but for life itself. It happens because the body, in ways we don't fully understand, starts conserving energy. The metabolism slows, the senses dull, and the brain begins withdrawing from the outside world. For many, it's one of the most telling signs that time is running short. Loss of appetite isn't just about missing a few meals. It's often a red flag that the body is shifting into a different phase, one where it no longer prioritizes things it once did. And without intervention, this slow disconnection can lead to rapid decline. At first, it's easy to dismiss, but when paired with the next sign, the picture becomes even clearer. Because this next change, it's one that people often laugh off, until it's too late to ignore. Number 2, a strange new weakness in hands, legs, or voice. Strength is something we take for granted until it's gone. The ability to grip a fork, turn a doorknob, or even stand up without thinking twice is second nature. But when these simple tasks suddenly become difficult, it's more than just a sign of aging, it's a warning. Many people assume that growing weaker is just part of getting older. A little more effort to open a jar, a little more strain getting out of a chair, nothing to worry about, right? But when weakness appears suddenly or progresses quickly, it's often a sign that something deeper is happening inside the body. Dorothy knew what it meant to be strong. At 76, she still carried her own groceries, walked to the corner store, and prided herself on not needing help. If anyone suggested she should slow down, she'd scoff. "I'm not that old," she'd say with a grin. Then, one afternoon, she reached for a glass of water and nearly dropped it. Her fingers trembled slightly, her grip weaker than she expected. She caught the glass before it fell and brushed it off. "Must be tired," she told herself. But a few days later, she struggled to twist open a jar she'd opened 100 times before. Her hands just didn't seem to work the same way. Then something even stranger happened. Her daughter called, and as they spoke, Dorothy's voice sounded different, softer, thinner, as if she were running out of breath just speaking. It wasn't a sore throat. It wasn't a cold. It was just weaker. At first, she laughed it off. Maybe I just need to drink more water. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Most people ignore these subtle shifts. They assume it's normal, but doctors know better. A sudden change in grip strength can be one of the most reliable predictors of overall health decline. It's not just about weak hands, it's about the body losing resilience. Studies show that weakening muscles, especially in the hands and legs, often signal trouble in the heart, lungs, and nervous system. It means the body is struggling to maintain what once came effortlessly. The same goes for the voice. A voice that becomes suddenly weak or breathy may indicate a decline in lung function, circulation, or even the early stages of neurological decline. It's a quiet but powerful warning. The body is letting go. Dorothy didn't know it at the time, but these seemingly small changes were signs of something much bigger. And for many, recognizing this warning can be the difference between getting help or slipping away unnoticed. And that leads us to number 1, the final warning sign, the one that catches families by surprise because it often looks like a good thing until they realize what it really means. Number 1, a sudden calmness as if everything is at peace. This is the one that catches families off guard. For weeks, maybe months, a person has been declining. Their energy fades, their appetite disappears, their body grows weaker, they sleep more than they're awake. They stop engaging in conversations, their world becomes quieter, smaller. Loved ones watch helplessly, bracing for what seems inevitable. They prepare themselves for the worst. And then, out of nowhere, something changes. They seem better. They wake up earlier, their eyes are brighter, they smile more, they talk about old memories with a warmth that hasn't been there in months. They ask for their favorite meal or to sit outside in the fresh air. They reach for the hand of a loved one and hold it with a gentle squeeze. It feels like hope. Families breathe a sigh of relief, believing the worst has passed. Maybe they're turning a corner, they say. Maybe they're getting stronger again. The fear that had been sitting in their chest like a weight finally starts to lift. But doctors and hospice workers know this moment all too well. It's called the final rally, and it's one of the most mysterious, heartbreaking, and deceptive signs of approaching death. For reasons science still doesn't fully understand, the body, after weeks or months of decline, finds one last surge of energy. It's as if something deep inside knows the end is near and is making peace with it. The body, in its final act, pulls together the last of its strength to allow a moment of clarity, a final farewell, a last chance to be present. It can last for a few hours, sometimes a day or two, in rare cases even a week. But no matter how long it lasts, it almost always follows the same pattern: a brief and unexpected burst of life, followed by a sharp and sudden decline. To those who don't recognize it, this moment can feel cruel. Families are led to believe that recovery is happening, only to be met with heartbreak when the decline returns, this time faster and more final. It's as if the body has used up every last drop of energy, leaving nothing else to fight with. But for those who understand it, the final rally is a gift. It's a chance to hold a loved one's hand a little longer, to have one last meaningful conversation, to say the things that need to be said, to make sure no words are left unsaid, no time is wasted. Many who witness this moment describe it as peaceful, almost spiritual. Some say their loved ones seem to have a quiet knowingness, as if they are aware of what's coming but unafraid. Others say they've seen people suddenly ask for closure, wanting to right old wrongs, say thank you, or express love they hadn't voiced before. There are stories of people who, after being unable to speak for days, suddenly become alert enough to tell their family how much they love them. There are stories of parents who hold on just long enough to see a long-lost child one last time. There are stories of laughter, of tears, of the most beautiful goodbyes. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the rally fades, and the body, finally at peace, lets go. These 5 signs don't mean the end is certain, but they do mean it's time to pay attention. Time to listen, time to love, and time to be present in ways that truly matter. If you or someone you love has been showing any of these signs, don't brush them off. Even the smallest changes can be a quiet signal that the body is preparing for something deeper. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. It's about knowing what to look for so that no moment is wasted, no words are left unsaid, and no goodbye comes too late. Because when the end does come, it's not just about how much time is left, it's about how that time is spent. Which of these 5 signs surprised you the most? Have you ever witnessed any of them in someone close to you? Let me know in the comments. Your experience might help others who are going through the same thing. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so more people can be informed about these important signs. You never know whose life it might touch. Stay aware, stay informed, and most importantly, stay present with the people who matter most.